Alright, welcome back everybody. Today's video is going to be taking a look at a master game. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a master game is sort of a term in the chess community, more or less for a game played between two highly skilled players. So some master games are way more famous than others. There's actually thousands of books full of these games with commentary discussing key ideas within the games. So today I want to share a game by Grandmaster Savielly Tartakower. His super handsome picture should be right over here on the right side of the screen. And yeah, Tartakower was one of the first Grandmasters I started reading about, actually, once I started looking into these master games. I'm going to say about a year ago, I was in a board game shop, and they had a book section with a whole lot of chess stuff. So I found a book with over 200 games played by this guy, and I figured, sure, fucking grab it. And here we are. So all the games in that book were actually played between 1905 and 1954, hence why this picture is also black and white, because it's kind of old. So this is older stuff, older chess. But that makes it even more interesting to me, because you sort of get a glimpse into the minds of these very strong players from many, many years ago. This game is Tartakower versus this guy, Lajos Steiner. So Lajos was a master from Hungary, and this game is played in Łódź, Poland, in 1935. So I probably brutalized the pronunciation of that city, but it's the best I got. So I believe this was played in a tournament. This game was a subset in a tournament for the Polish Chess Championship, which Tartakower did win. So, sick. So getting right into it here. The game starts with we have d4, d5, knight f3, and knight f6. So this is sort of a variation on the Catalan system. So I don't know too much about the Catalan, but you can see that the knights are each defending their pawn here, and this d4, this d4 structure is similar to things like you get the Queen's Gambit out of. So there's a whole school of these d4 openings, which is also nice to look at, because I feel like the e4, is this even going to let me do it? Oh, it did. Yeah, these e4 openings are much more common. I'm sure everybody's seen these, but here we have the beginning to not a true Catalan, but you know, it looks like a Catalan. We continue with g3. So this is opening up this little diagonal here for the bishop. We're not going to want to go all the way up there. We're going to want to, the word is fianchetto, the light squared bishop. That is to say, sort of putting it between this little fortress of pawns here, and then, you know, we're sort of developing our minor pieces in a nice way to be able to castle our king over on the king side. So that's kind of nice. What else we got? E6. Bishop G2, there's that fianchetto. C5, pawn move, sort of gaining space, challenging the d4 pawn. And we castle. Knight c6. I don't want to go over every single move in detail. I sort of want to get to the key points here. So this, and then I stop at the very next move. So this is an interesting point because there are two different moves here. The one that, so Savielly is, Tartakower is playing the white pieces, if I didn't say that before. So Tartakower is going for a safer approach. He could have played this move, c4 here, which is a little more aggressive. It's immediately challenging black's pawns in the center. There's going to be some trades. There's going to be stuff going on. But rather than do that, he plays it a little bit safer. Just a note. So continuing, we have black also short casting on the king side. So typically games where both players are casting on the same side, it's not as it doesn't get as crazy in the beginning, but it gets crazy later. So there's a lot of positional play, people fighting, both players fighting for a small advantage, trying to gain space, trying to maneuver their pieces to good squares. Whereas if both players are castled on opposite sides, it sort of just makes for like pretend if my king was over here and castled this way, I would just want to push all my pawns up, and they call it a pawn storm. Just throw everything I have at the king. But this this is a little more civilized, I guess you could say. Let me unclick all these things. Okay, so where are we? We have black or white rather. Move his knight over. So black wants to. Black doesn't like this. Black doesn't like white trying to coordinate his minor pieces in a coherent fashion. Minor pieces, by the way, are bishops, knights. That's it, actually, bishops and knights. So the major pieces are the rooks and the queen. The king is the king. He's the king. And pawns are pawns. So what is meant by minor pieces, in one sense, yes, they are not as powerful usually as minor pieces are not usually as powerful as the major pieces. You also cannot checkmate with a minor piece and a king. So let's say if you just had a bishop and a king versus a lone king, no pawn on the board, it's actually a draw. Cannot checkmate. Same thing goes for a knight and a king versus a lone king. Checkmate cannot be achieved. So, moving along. White says, okay, you're not going to let me do stuff, so I'm just going to capture. We'll make it nice and even. And then white says he moves his knight to e5. This is actually pretty nice because the white's knight is defended by this pawn here. And so he's sort of cemented in. No matter what black does to capture this knight, whatever captures it can be recaptured by the pawn. So that's something that black has to deal with. That is a nice thing to do in your own games. Is you want to put your knights, they call them outpost squares. You want to put your knight on a square that is protected by a pawn, and then you have achieved an outpost. What's also nice about white position right now is he has these two bishops that are fianchettoed, and the pieces are all starting to work together. They're definitely nicer than black's pieces right now. See, this bishop is sort of blocked in by this pawn here, and this bishop is blocked in by that pawn, and this knight, you know, he's hanging out. He's okay, but white, you could definitely say that white has more coordinated minor pieces for the moment. So black tries to get rid of this outpost. He grabs this up here. And white's going to do the same thing, just sort of open up the center a little bit. We're just sort of continuing on. And I'm going to skip ahead to, let's see, here. Yeah. Yes. So we have some trades going on. Nothing too crazy. A little bit of simplification, but you can see that when white is capturing this dark squared bishop, he has two ways to recapture. He could recapture with the pawn, and he could recapture with the rook. Recapturing with the rook wouldn't be great because now the rook is he's a little exposed. He's that major piece that, again, is a little bit more valuable than the minor pieces. He's opening himself up to being harassed by the minor pieces, and he's sort of blocked in by these two pawns. So black does the logical thing. He captures with the pawn. Well, the engine is actually recommending capturing with the rook, but either way, they're about the same. They both have their downsides, like we said. Capturing with the rook would have the downside of it being sort of exposed. However, the game move, now you're moving the pawns in front of the king, sort of exposing your king. Obviously not great, but you got to do something. You can't just lose your dark squared bishop for free. So we capture with this pawn. White. So white's making use of his coordinated minor pieces here. He's doing good stuff. White is definitely, he's a little bit ahead now. He's making the moves. So we move our queen up, and let's see, skipping ahead. What's the move I want? Rook a6. Here we go. Rook a6. So both players are sort of trying their best to, well, white is better, and what black needs counterplay. And so what he's doing is, this move's called a rook lift. It's sort of when the idea is he's moving his rook off the back rank with the intention of bringing it towards the center, lifting it, as it were, around his other pieces. Sometimes rook lifts are good. It's not always the best, but he's trying to do something. He's trying to make some sort of counterplay. And white is doing his best to minimize black's counterplay. And also, if you notice, this is a good move in this case, because he has to protect this this square here. Otherwise, white would have this fork on the queen and the rook. So not good. Black don't want that. What else we got? So we're going to skip ahead to move 21. Queen c5. So we were talking about counterplay before. White's pieces, we've already established, are better. In order for black to get back into this game, his idea, which is a very sound idea, he's trying to trade some pieces off. See, even if material is equal, the position is not necessarily equal if one player stands better. So what you do is you take your piece of equal value and trade it off with your opponent's piece of equal value that was standing in a better position on the board, therefore bringing the position as a whole back to sort of a neutrality. You're trying to make the position even again by trading off the opponent's better pieces for your worse pieces. Black's main idea is to get rid of the queen. That's the most dangerous piece. There's definitely more of a sense of security once the queens have been traded off, for sure. And that's in almost every game. So, black wants to counterplay. Black wants to get rid of some of these pieces. So let's see. I'm gonna go up to move 23. Yes. So you can see that um, Black has maneuvered his queen over, offering a queen trade. You can see these two queens right here, sort of opposing each other. And first, what Tartakower does is he puts his rook in between the two of them, which is um, it's an interesting tactic that I've been looking into. Some people call it interference. So obviously the queen can't capture because White could actually recapture one of two ways, and he would be trading his queen for a rook, which is terrible. He's already losing. He doesn't want to be losing even more. And Tartakower is actually setting himself up for this next move, which he plays right here, this f4. So this is really nice. He's attacking the queen with his pawn that's being protected by the rook, which was more of an incentive to play that interference move. And Black has nowhere to go. This is all blocked off by pawns. His knight's in the way here. Quite literally, his best move is to move back to this c5 square, which he was already there. So White has now made progress, and Black has done nothing. He moved his queen from here, and now he's got to move it back here. So White's Tartakower is putting, he's pressing. He's definitely using his advantage here. And even the engine agrees queen c5 is the best move, but, White now stands better than he did a couple of moves ago. And we're going to skip ahead to move 27, queen e2. So we got some trades, we got some remaneuvering. Here we go, queen e2. So Black is still trying his best to create counterplay, and White is trying to keep that hold he has on his advantage. Not trying to trade off too many pieces. Not yet, anyway. So we have Black moving. All right, this is the next important move here. Black has messed up. Black moved his queen over here. I don't know exactly what he was trying to do in this position, but this piece, this knight here, is now hanging. Something is hanging, or rather, to hang a piece is to let it be captured for no compensation. And you can clearly see that White is just going to take this. So that, our boy is in trouble here. Black is not doing so good after losing his knight for free. He takes his pawn with check, which really doesn't do anything. You can see there's no other pieces that Okay, well, actually, now I can sort of see what Black might have been going for. Yes, he let his knight go, and now that he has the check, obviously, White has to respond to the check, and this bishop is still attacking here, so maybe he was thinking, I'm going to let my knight go for now, and then I'm going to pick up the bishop afterwards, after White moves, which is exactly what happened. But now I just take the bishop, and Black really doesn't stand much better after that. Or, as a matter of fact, the engine is arguing that White stands better after all of that. So losing his knight, there was not enough compensation. And now you can see that Black just has his two rooks and his queen as far as pieces go. Granted, there are, both players still have pawns on the board. Whereas White is up this extra minor piece we were talking so much about. He has this extra knight. Let's see. All right, so black moving his rook over, taking over this open d file here. However, so to a lot of people, you might argue, even though white is a lot better according to the engine, we're up. I don't know if you can see this, but plus 4.9, which is quite a lot. Anything over plus 2 is a considerable advantage. So yes, white's king is exposed. Black has these two pieces working together to put the hurt on white's king, but it's white's move, and he's got some tricks. He's gonna make some moves here. So it looks like white plays a stupid move, and he just hangs his. He's just hanging his knight. But this was not the move that was played in the game. Capturing with a rook is actually a blunder. That is because white has a check, and then black's got to defend against that check somehow, and no matter which way he does, then this rook is just hanging. So this was a clever move by Savielly, and it's what we would call a forcing move. So forcing moves force your opponents to do something, and the most forcing moves are checks, because just as per the rule of the game, once you are in check, you have to get out of check. Whether you move away or you capture the piece that is putting you in check, you got to do something about it. And we'll see shortly that even though Tartakower loses his knight right here, it actually makes way for more mobility. Sort of, a clearance sacrifice, you can call it. Getting rid of his piece, clearing it out of the way, but opening up more squares for his other pieces to do stuff. So black saw that he couldn't capture with the rook, so what he opts for instead is moving his king, but we'll see that it's not much better. So now we move our knight away, which the engine does rate this as the best move. Again, it seems a little strange. We're putting it under the direct eye of both of these pieces here. But we'll see, a little bit of analysis, we realize, well, we can't capture with the queen because black cannot capture with the queen because we have this rook here guarding it. So he has to take it with the pawn because, otherwise we're just threatening to take that rook for free. Gotta do something. So black plays the best move. He plays, or rather, he captures with the queen, and we see that now we have this nice open line for our queen against this black king. So we check, and the best move is just a retreat. However, this file here, the G file, still wide open. We have another check, and we have a little pawn right here that we could protect our queen. Similar to we were talking earlier in the game about putting our knight on strong outposts. Well, you could defend your other pieces with pawns too. So we got a whole lot of stuff going on here. But we'll please arrows. Okay. King G8. Just looking at my notes a little bit here. Yep. So Tartakower played the most natural move. He's just going to check. King F7. Not, there's not a lot of moves you could play. But he goes with this here. I could sort of see where he's coming from. See, even though the engine recommends this King H8 Doesn't look too nice because then you have this check and, well, you're just winning the rook for free. So the engine, it's not wrong, but it definitely thinks in a way that humans don't. I would very much call. Whoop, we're going too crazy. I would very much say that King H8 is a very engine move, and King F, the one that was played in the game, King F7 is a very human move. I understand that Black is just trying to hold on to his material with hopes of trying to create some counterplay. Maybe White will mess up his attack a little bit. That's all he can hope for at this point because White is ahead so much. He doesn't want to lose that material. So we continue. We capture a pawn. That's now our two rooks are connected. You can see. And looking real scary for Black now. Black just tries to check. I mean, what else is he gonna do? He really has nothing else to do. And now we move our king away to the safe space, sort of getting out of the way of any other checks. Black plays the best move. He just tries to defend this the 7th rank against checks, but even that is not great because if we check, we have our other rook down here, or we can collect it. But trying to delay the inevitable. Tartakower continues. He's just trying to reposition his queen, getting ready for a checkmate move here. This is actually an interesting little tactic here. He's moving his queen over here because we'll give Black nothing move. We'll say moves here or something. Even if I take my queen, never mind. The engine doesn't like this. But I could tell you that Tartakower is setting up a mate with that. So Black sees it, he moves, and this is the killing blow of the game. While it's not checkmate yet, it's gonna be. So okay, now we can see why Tartakower moved his queen up to this 6th rank here. It's because he wanted to bring his rook in, and you could see that even if Black were to take, we can just take back, and he's lost a rook for nothing. So Black actually resigned in this position. Pretty much anything White did was going to be overwhelming. So that's it. This, I think, was a really cool game to check out. Savielly Tartakower was never world champion, but some people argue that he was one of the strongest players to never be world champion, which, sure, that's subjective, but he definitely had some interesting ideas, so his games are always fun to look at. So I would like to do more of these videos. I have a whole bunch of books and resources that I could pull master games from, and I would like to check them out because this helps me too. It helps me understand these ideas, and if you liked what you saw, just leave some comments down below. Maybe ask some questions about this game, or tell me about some other games you would like to see, some grandmasters that or masters or whoever, some chess players that you would like to see review some games, and we could check them out. So that's all I got for right now. Take care.